Welcome to Thought Leaders, featuring interviews with some of the best minds in the industry. Today's special guest is popular platform speaker, software inventor, and best-selling author, Curtis Cloak. Hello everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and talk show host. In this segment, we're explaining how to develop and design a comprehensive retirement plan with secure income and growth, all from Curtis's popular presentation, Cracking the Retirement Code, and his best-selling software, The Annuity Bulldozer. Well, let's talk about this. If you've been following us, hopefully you're following us in order, in chronology of our shows, because this will really help you in your tutorial experience. We're talking about a process. And the first thing we need to do is figure out, when you say divide and conquer, what am I trying to do here?
What we're talking about is, there's four basic things that we all want day of retirement. If you think about it, if we had the choice, we'd preserve our assets and slowly grow them over time. That's two things. Then we'd want to distribute from the portfolio our income gap needs, coordinate with Social Security and pension. And then we'd want to inflate those income gap needs over time to keep pace with inflation. So those are four basic things that we want. But when you say that together, preserve, slowly grow your assets while distributing your assets and inflating that distribution, they're conflicting goals. Well, how do you handle the confliction? Well, it's real simple. Separate the assets into two camps. And so let's just separate the assets on the left and secure income assets. Assets, they're buying income. They're secure and inflation adjusted, fully tethered to reserves and protections that give us sleep insurance at night. And because we actually can go out and do the math with these, with the analytic tools that exist today, certainly tools that we've created, we can tell a client whether they're 5 years from retirement or 10 years from retirement, 2 days from retirement, 5 years after retirement. We can tell them based on their portfolio and whatever the analytics are, how much of the dollars is required to actually hold in that secure income asset camp. Whether it's we've talked about this before, is it a essential income floor or is it a lifestyle income floor? And these dollars, whatever they are, must be walled off in a way that are reliable and predictable. I have to count on them. And then whatever I don't need is separated and left over for growth and liquidity, discretionary income, and if it's important to me, legacy. But I have created now more permission, more acceptance for risk, so risk tolerance.
Because you've covered off all the essentials.
And I'm also creating two teams. What am I talking about? Well, imagine you have an NFL team, and you send the offensive team out on the field when it's time to send your team out on the field. But imagine for a minute that you don't have a defensive team. How many ball games would you win? If you sent out your offense but no defense, you wouldn't win any ball games. So the same is true of retirement planning. I have to have a defensive team that takes care of the income floor, and then I have to have an offensive team, which is the bucket ladder strategy and the long-term growth, right? And what would that be? Well, that's the offensive team. So this gives me both offense and defense, and with the work that we do together with Tom Hagner, it creates what he calls the paycheck and the playcheck. And so this is a very logical idea of divide and conquer.
Okay, so in your mind, though, you have a partitioning going on here, and I'm going to take care of all my essential inflation, essential expense loads in retirement. I'm going to do a pretty good due diligence on what I think the life expectancy may be. Once I've walled that off, and you're using a very strong word. I mean, it's funny, we use the word guarantees with annuities. Now we're using the word predictable, which is just as strong, talking about this is exactly what we're going to get. And I've noticed, Curtis, that sometimes you'll buy sections. You won't buy one big income for you'll split up. You might do a little bit of SPIA. You might do some DIAs. You might do certain time, a period certain. You might do lifetime. You'll really mix it up over here to really what I would say is address all the complications that could come in all my floor issues. Yeah,
and when you're buying investments, you don't just buy from one stock and just one bond. You diversify. Why do you do that? Well, you're trying to spread your risk around and create a more conservative approach by diversifying the assets. When you're buying income insurance guarantees for income guarantees, and you're incorporating SPIAs and DIAs and GOWB, the reality is you need to diversify those purchases for the same reason that you diversify your investment purchases. Now, I'm not really worried about a company going belly up because every income annuity, SPIA or DIA, has statutory reserve requirements and capital reserve requirements. There's been lots of companies fail, but there's been no statutory reserves left unpaid for retail, not talking about institutional, but for retail income guarantees. They've all prevailed whether the company left standing or not. So I need to be able to create that reliability and predictability to those statutory reserves, and I need to purchase those sometimes based upon limitations to the state pool, for example. So I just delivered a retirement plan to a physician in Chicago this Monday, or actually this Sunday night, and I delivered 6 contracts to the floor. Why? Because we didn't, in the state of Illinois, we've got a $250,000 individual annuity state pool protection. And so what I did was I went out and looked at the carriers. I looked at how much income we needed to buy, who was the top 5, who was the top 6, and we literally diversified, laddering those purchases to represent a multitude of carriers based on the various classes of his assets.
And this is going to free up. This is the odd thing that most advisors don't see. What you've just done, people say, well, you just took away from my assets under management. You just took away from my positions in equities. I have to spend all this down to pull this off, which I do like it, but I really don't have any access into market growth.
No, because we talked about this in a previous session. They had allocation liquidity where they could tip from stock to bond, bond to a stock, but they had no discretionary liquidity. They had no spending liquidity besides cash flow. Understand that I get really constrained of holding a lot of assets hostage when I have to live on a 3% distribution or a 4% distribution. When I start using the products I described here just a little bit ago, I'm looking at age 65, 6.5% distribution rates, which means I'm going to use half or less of the assets held hostage to income, freeing a much larger piece for more risk acceptable investments, more equities.
Well, for more information on how you can use Curtis's revolutionary retirement strategies with your clients and prospects to expand your practice, just click on the landing page address in the video description. We'll be right back with more from Curtis Clark.
A solid web presence has never been more important to the success of your business. Introducing Agent Website Creator, provided by CreativeOne. Through Agent Website Creator, you can create your own personalized website and have it up and running easily with zero knowledge of programming. Choose from several designs with easy drag and drop customization. Get proven lead generation offers, professionally written articles, and helpful financial calculators. Plus, the ability to embed videos, integrate your social media, and more. Update your website anytime and show the world within minutes. The best part? It's hosted for free. To learn more about Agent Website Creator, call your CreativeOne sales team at 800-992-2642 or visit us online at creativeone.com.
In this segment, we're explaining how to develop and design a comprehensive retirement plan with an income process, all from Curtis's popular presentation, Cracking the Retirement Code, and his best-selling software, The Annuity Bulldozer. Well, let's talk about the income process. And actually, this last segment we did, it was just fantastic. That was the basic. Remember, if you go to Curtis's actual Thrive University, that one slide is an hour. I mean, really, it really unpacks it. We're just trying to do the generic understanding so you can get a general idea of what's going on. Now, when we're talking about achieving our goals, and I'm looking at all these goals, I mean, I'm thinking, there are too many goals to do. But you have them, they're interworking. They have actually synergy among themselves. Walk me through why that is and how you do it.
Well, clearly, as we continue the process after the divide and conquer, our goals are multiple. Right? We want to beat inflation or meet inflation. You know, we want to guarantee income. We'd like to minimize taxes, of course, and fees. We want to maximize returns without too much risk. And for those that really care about it, leaving a legacy is really important. And 25% or 75% of what goes into the making of somebody making all these decisions is emotional, maybe 90%, and 10% is the financial, or 25% to 10% is the financial. The point is, how do we take these metaphoric hunks of metal that mean nothing and get them in a craft that actually lets them run together, where the math and science is really creating something quite beautiful for the client. Now, we of course, we call this Thrive, but these are the goals that our clients are trying to achieve.
Well, I've heard you talk about this before. Of course, when we're talking about guaranteeing income, we could be talking about a GOWB, we could be talking about a SPIA, a DIA, but every time I've heard you talk about it, you're always talking about it in concert with inflation.
Yes.
They have to be together.
So understand that there are products that exist and have existed for quite some time that allow you not to only buy a level income guarantee, but an income guarantee that you can literally purchase an inflation rider that is not projective or not tethered to the market or not tethered to the decision of a non-guaranteed essential feature of a particular insurance product, that you can literally buy incremental levels of inflation that you select as a rider that are contractually protected and fully reserved, as we've talked about before, and you can count on them. They're reliable, they're predictable. So you can buy it today, in today's world, with products that exist today, you can buy in as small an increment as 0.10, 10 basis points. You can buy it in 10 basis point increases, so you can buy 20 bips and 30 bips and 40 bips. And you can buy it all the way up to 6.5% based on products that exist today. In addition to buying just static inflation riders that say 1, 2, 3, whatever the case may be, there are 2 products out there that allow you to buy CPI. So you're not necessarily doing it statically, you're doing it dynamically with some measurement, similar to the way we measure, cost of living in this country. Interestingly enough, the 2 that I'm talking about don't have a cap on them. So I find that kind of interesting, because a little scary maybe with longevity, that we have products that exist out there where it's a kind of a blank check with whatever the CPI does is what it's going to do. But the point is, I think the best buy is to actually illustrate buying that essential or lifestyle floor we've talked about before. Different mindset as to how much money a client has, but being able to literally buy some level of what I call essential inflation, 2 to 3% probably is what we're going to find. Is very powerful in terms of mitigating risks, and this brings it all together.
I don't see too many plans, and I'm talking about the ones that I see come across my desk that are really addressing taxes. And we're talking about when I'm on retirement, when I'm taking income, I'm looking at what's spendable. I'm not looking at my total rate of return. I'm looking at my total rate of return, less my expenses for that fund, the RIA fee, less my taxes, because this is what I have in my hand. How many people manage this? I know you do, but I see a lot of retirement plans that are not addressing taxation itself.
Yeah, taxes, probably one of the biggest wins for us is the tax game. We're so familiar with all the products. I'm literally mean on the traditional investment side, the alternative investment side, and on the insurance side. We literally understand the inner workings of the tax and the math, the unusual characteristics of products you might not have even heard about. And for example, I'm going to throw one out at you and I'm going to leave you hanging. If I were to tell you that you had a income rider FIA, fixed indexed annuity, existed out there that give you a first in, first out tax treatment, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. But the fact is that there's a product that allows you to do something called the Social Security Bridge, where you eliminate the tax at the front end and control the taxes later. We call that a FIFO, first in, first out, not a last in, first out, FIA, fixed indexed annuity. And because we understand and make it our job to know as many of these things that are not traditional knowledge, that we can create all kinds of tax opportunities that is not even perceived possible. And when you have a system that dynamically considers fee drag taxes and inflation, when pulling together traditional investments and the way these products work and how the IRS treats the taxes differently, the power of that is sometimes I can't raise performance in the market, even in a good cycle, to compete with the savings of the tax. Taxes are a very big deal.
Well, for more information on how you can use Curtis's revolutionary retirement strategies with your clients and prospects to help you build out your business, just click on the landing page address in the video description. And for more information on our shows, seminars, or workshops, just follow us on social media or visit us out on our website. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next time on Thought Leaders. And remember, keep thinking outside the box.